Big changes yesterday. Now you can't borrow to buy a residential property in your super. The implications, the craziness, the net result we feel is going to happen in the market. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about punters buying in their super. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
My God, what have they done, Josh? What have they done?
Hit after hit, eh?
What have they done? Josh Wapp shot real estate agent, commercial, residential, Northern Beaches. Mark Novak, real estate agent, Northern Beaches. What do you reckon? So, can you start? Can we start from the top?
Yeah, sure. So yesterday, news came out in order for Labor to get these policies through. They did a bit of a deal with the Greens. The Greens said, we'll support you, but we want you also to introduce the ability of no leverage when it comes to self-managed super funds buying residential property. So leverage obviously referring to financing. So yeah, just it seems they're after the resi market here, Mark. One after the other. There's definitely no reprieve or time to breathe before they serve up their next hit.
They're after. They're you know, it's one thing to motivate people to incentivize them, and it's one thing to motivate people to de-incentivize and smash them on the bum. And I've got to say, it's this recent one came out of nowhere. What these guys are doing to win votes is just incredible to stay in power. And I just think it's going to be a super upheaval. I think people are going nuts at the moment with being all these sort of taxes, call them penalties, call them taxes, call them what you want. There's certainly not incentives. But I just want to break down exactly what this means to landlords and exactly what this means to tenants and exactly what this means to people in their super.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go.
It's a big change. So obviously, number one thing is you take the buyer out of the market, you're going to take the supply out of the market for rentals. So not only did the budget help with that, but this will further assist. Obviously, it's generally your entry level property that probably comes into effect when what these buyers are purchasing, because generally your leverage is not what you normally is under a superannuation. You generally find couples combining their super. But generally, that sort of buying range is probably around $800 to $1 million. So your bread and butter stock for your rentals, that's going to be out the window. It's I think I said to you before, Mark, and we had a bit of a laugh out of it. The old cat, the old investor, they're running out of their 9 lives.
Investors have been smashed, and this is just another one. If you don't know, guys and girls, there's $10 trillion in the property market in Australia. If you don't know, in addition to that, there's $4.4 trillion in cash in super. And if you don't know, in 1992 they invented super, and they said you're going to have to pay it. It's going to come out of your wage at 3%. People went, whatever, 3%, that's cool. It's now 12. There's now $4.4 trillion sitting in super. And that is a big bucket for cash for people's retirement. And then what people were doing is people were buying a residential property. They were putting 400,000 from their super, and they were putting 400,000 by way of a loan on their super, and they're going across and buying something for 800 grand, and then they're saying, let's rent it out for the next 20 years. Let's be a landlord, or let's be a property provider to tenants for the next 20 years with this asset. They've turned around now and said, no, You can't actually use, if you've got 400,000, you can buy for 400,000. You cannot borrow any money to buy an investment property. Now, the average Australian, believe it or not, has about 180,000 sitting in their super. That isn't enough fuel to buy a property. Can't even buy a storage room for that. And if they combine it with their wife, they're sitting on 360,000. Now you can't buy a property you can't borrow money on that, that super money. Now, when you go, you're not going to have the capacity to provide a property into the rental market. Now, any of the supply that was coming in for tenants, like a tenant wouldn't know if the property they're living in generally is owned by a super or owned by a company or owned by a natural person. But what I can say is that there's going to be less purchases of investment stock into the property market, and then tenants are going to get royally jobbed again because of what's actually happened there. And can people not see the net effect?
100%, Mark. You said it well there. Lisa's just added in as well. I feel sorry for the tenants too. Up goes rent. The people who voted for Labor get screwed.
There's too much money, Josh, in super to buy stocks. What are the landlords going to buy? If you haven't realised, there's ASX capitalised is $3.7 trillion. Our superannuation cash in Australia is bigger than our whole stock market. And now okay, what are we going to do? We're going to buy a property. Oh, we don't have enough money. We want to borrow money in our super for our future, for our savings, and buy a property. No.
And yeah, it's funny. Like one of the things I was reading about the Greens actually said that you're going to go and make these changes to superannuation, and then you're going to actually go and put more. You're going to go back to the NDIS, and you're going to make cuts to. You're going to make changes to the cuts you made on that program. So you know that let's take the funds and put it to something extremely what's the word? Add value to the community, the public, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's very frustrating. And I think the big question that comes out of this, Mark, is where do you put your money? It seems as though they don't want the Australian public investing in anything but continuing to up your super. And
The reason they did this is because they've said now, if you've just tuned in, we're talking about yesterday's change where people can't borrow money with their super for buying an investment property, and the knock-on effect that this is going to have. From what you're telling me, Josh, this is to win votes. So the Labor had some. This is one of the Labor policies that Greens policies that now Labor's snapped on to if they make them happy, they win more votes. Like, where is the cohesiveness for a finance model in a country when they're just wanting to win votes? I don't get it. And that much money in super, like, people have got rocks in their head. If they're not going to do anything with that money, it's 12% of people's earnings that's going toward their
100%.
super. It's
Yeah.
12%.
And yeah, it just doesn't make sense with the way affordability is, taking 12% of someone's income and then now tying up their hands, telling them what you can and can't do with it. Um, and we're going to take a bigger chunk out of it here. I mean, yeah, it sounds like the great robbery.
And it's astonishing that there's so much money there in super. Use it for good. If we've got a shortage in the marketplace for tenants, obviously we do. If the rents are skyrocketing, provide more properties to tenants. I know they're great doing. I know they're great saying we want you to buy a property, but if you haven't realised, guys, the property market's probably gone down 5 or 10%. The government is doing 5% deposits. If they're giving you a 5% deposit as a government, if they're allowing you to buy with 5% deposit, and then your property goes negative in value by 5% or 10%, what a stupid reverse economy. Like, I would be shitting myself if I'm a tenant, if I've just purchased and then the property value goes down. You
100%,
know,
Mark. And another thing as well is like, do they forget about bank serviceability and the median house price? I mean, if you go and do a simple calculation, I was doing it on behalf of a friend, used to be a mortgage broker. We're just having a chat over the table. But with someone with no credit cards paying $350 rent a week and the average living expenses standards over every month, on 125 grand income, you could borrow about 750,000. So it's not and when we talk about 125,000, you're talking about the top quartile of earnings amongst the community. So how is this bridging the gap for the affordability part of the market? It just doesn't make sense. And when you run those figures, my friend was like, "Geez, what have I got to do? I've got to end up saving a 300 grand deposit because I can't borrow the money to buy what I want to buy."
and we've talked about rents, and we talked about this change that's been happening yesterday with super, but what does that do to the values? Does that erode the values of property? Because I know people that have been buying in their super to become a landlord, and they've got the money there. Know people that have said, I cannot buy, I cannot do anything with my home, I cannot borrow money in my home. If I furthermore, we're in mortgage prison. What's mortgage prison? You were given a loan 5 years ago, and if you went to get the same loan today, you would be declined for the same property that you have. That's called mortgage prison. Because they're in mortgage prison, they looked over at their super. Her hubby had 200, wife had 200. They said, we've got 400 there. Now, if you bought something, if you got a loan on that, if you grabbed that 400 of super and grabbed a loan of 4 or 500 grand, that wouldn't change your personal lending situation, because super is completely partitioned away. And now you're not going to be able, or you can't, get a loan with your super with that. So that 400 grand has just got to sit there in cash, and you just got to look at it for another probably 10 years until there's 800 there. By that point, the property value's up again over a 10-year period. It's really bloody weird. It shits me.
It is, but there is some silver lining amongst the market there, and I think we've been feeling the early stages of this. Obviously, commercial being unaffected when it comes to the purchasing in or financing in your self-managed super fund. Commercial property not affected. This is only for residential property. So I think we're really starting to see the stimuluses and the changes in the environment where commercial starts to do quite well here, because it seems they're limiting a lot of the capabilities on residential property, but still
How's
having
that going to help a
those.
tenant?
It's not going to help a tenant, but like you said, there's not much good you can pull from it. I guess the only thing we can is an area that was struggling over the last 2, 3 years. They've got a lot of reasons now to do well.
Everyone's been jolly rogered. Everyone. Landlords, tenants, the budget, this change, everyone's been jolly rogered. And I can't see any silver lining where the government's actually turned around and said, we want to actually provide more properties. There was that, look, I actually like that Mins guy, but he's come along last February, before, like, this is a year and a half ago, and introduced all of this density that can be built. I haven't seen. I think I'd be lucky to see one on the northern beaches that's been approved and starting to build. Like, where is that? There's all these. I'm just not saying. It's just like take, screw, and I'm worried. I'm worried. But anyway, we can talk about this all day. I know that when I
Yeah.
walk into a coffee shop, I know that when I walk into a service station, I know that when I walk into a meal with a friend, it's the first topic that's discussed. What's happened in this budget, and it's an ill feeling all around. And I know that businesses are doing it tough. I'm hearing it all the time, and I know, but where are the incentives?
That's a massive one. You just click back in. There we go. Yeah, I think that was massive. Where's the
Right on.
incentive? That's a real big question. I mean,
If
you
the
know,
landlord has been slaughtered for 20 years, and sure they're getting more and more rent, and they're going to be getting huge rents in the next year or two, huge rents. But that's I know. Does the landlord want that? Sure, but I think as a community, it's not the right way. It's not the right way to actually to run good economics.
definitely not. Definitely not. And it's yeah, definitely had an effect on the market. And you know, to all the hardworking individuals that have put in
More
the
tax,
graft,
more tax.
sacrificed. Yeah, no, it's a
Go get a
shame.
second job. Go get a
I think
second
Luke,
job.
I
More
think
tax.
Luke puts it right. I won't say what he said, but it's bang on, bang on with that comment, Luke. But yeah, no incentive. I think that's what I pulled from it all.
There you go. You didn't say it,
Beauty.
but have a lovely day. Blue skies. Let's work hard. Let's work through it. Love ya. See ya.
See you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Josh. Cheers. Mate.